Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala sayyidina Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Thank you, Dr. Nasser, for the kind introduction. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to address this distinguished forum. The organizer has asked me to speak about the role of religion in addressing human crisis. Instead of speaking about the many kinds of crises we are facing today, I have decided to use this opportunity to think on a more conceptual level about the form of language and reasoning that, in my view, have led and may continue to lead us to a myriad of contemporary and prospective human crises, from the unbridled expansion of capital and its incursion into various domains of life, to the probability of nuclear war and the certainty of climate change and environmental destruction that may jeopardize our very existence on this planet. I also want to think about the role of religion in offering alternative form of language and reasoning that may help us address our contemporary crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by clarifying what I mean by a form of language. And here I am drawing on the works of the philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein. Wittgenstein proposed that using a language is like playing a game, and understanding a language game is understanding a form of life. No appeal to rules guarantees that a statement has been uttered correctly, if only because it is possible to interpret and apply a rule incorrectly. To understand a form of life presupposes that one comprehends how language is embedded in and articulate itself as a result of that translation process. The most advanced and probably deleterious form of language that realized the full potential of this post-Enlightenment philosophy of language is, of course, the language of numbers. At the heart of the language of numbers is abstraction and generalization. It is a form of language that is independent of the form of life in which it is used, precisely because it is abstract. Feels more like a marketplace than a conference. It's very noisy. It is a form of language that is independent of the form of life in which it is used, precisely because it is abstract. And it is this very abstract quality that allows its great success in the realm of scientific knowledge. It enables practical collection of disembedded data for the purpose of governance and capitalist expansion. The use of mathematical language, however, goes well beyond the immediate interests of political control and commercial profit. It is central to the inventiveness of future orientation found in developments such as artificial intelligence and genetic engineering. Central to that abstract language, including probability theory, is that it enables a move from a reading of the world as a display of signs or information to reconstructing the world in which humans live. That is, the language of numbers allows for the remaking of the world through the modern state and advanced capitalism, as well as the science and technology on which both depend. This language is not simply integral to modern collective life. It is crucial in shaping its character. It is interesting that attitudes to risk are now changing as a result not only of the increasing privatization of insurance as a measure of increasing efficiency, but also of the reconceptualization of risk itself in positive terms. The idea is widely promoted that too much protection is bad for people's material and psychological development, for the national economy, as well as for individual character. From the older view that risk is something to be avoided or managed, it is now sought in a considerable range of individual behavior, especially in the context of stock market, where it has become the principal source of wealth generation, but also cause of wealth loss through the process known as securitization. The encouragement of a flexible individualism claimed to be appropriate for the challenges of new capitalism is increasingly and triumphantly described as competing on edge and as embracing risk. The increase of this kind of competitive individualism obviously fragments the experience of one's membership in a collectivity that has become abstract, making the sense of mutual trust and responsibility among individuals more difficult to achieve. In place of trust, there is an increase of suspicion. Ladies and gentlemen, the language of numbers has allowed not only the astonishing achievements of modern science, technology, and industry, but may also lead us to a crisis and a dark future. Let us think about death and devastation in nuclear war. It is widely known that the relentless buildup of strategic nuclear weapons has already witnessed many accidents and close calls. Some military analysts confidently claim that nuclear war between the Soviet Union and the United States was avoided during the Cold War precisely because of the strategy known as mutually assured destruction. And therefore, this strategy can be relied upon in the future. But this assumption is plausible only if human decisions are translatable into the language of rational choice theory. And as many have pointed out, rational choice theory employs a very impoverished language for understanding life as it is actually lived. More important, the fact that no nuclear war has taken place so far does not prove that it cannot happen in the future. Retired US General Lee Butler once famously remarked that, quote, mankind escaped the Cold War without a nuclear holocaust by some combination of diplomatic skill, blind luck, and divine intervention, probably the latter in greatest proportion. Should we continue to rely on divine intervention on our behalf? Or can we, as secular citizens, use our ability to calculate risk rationally? Death and devastation also threaten, but more slowly, through the result of climate change. One example of this is described in a recent report on the increasing deoxygenization of the oceans due not only to the warming of oceans resulting from climate change, but also to more direct human activity with more immediate consequences. The discharge into estuaries and coastal systems of the nitrogen and phosphorus used as nutrients in industrial agriculture, sewage, and the combustion of fossil fuel. Several million square kilometers are affected in this way. Probability theory cannot predict the future. It can only raise and lower anxiety about what might happen. But if probability theory is the way to measure degrees of uncertainty, does this mean that it can give reasonable men and women assurance that global dislocation produced by climate change can be avoided or mitigated in the future? Or are we already in the midst of a disastrous crisis whose precise outcome cannot be foreseen but should be more focused? In an important sense, language of numbers requires inattention to the world from which it has been abstracted. It renders life as science, that is, as computable and translatable information. And it is here that I want to turn to the role of religion in addressing this crisis. Specifically, I want to think about the notion of untranslatability. Muslims believe that the Quran is untranslatable. What then is the meaning of untranslatability? My first thought here is that the Islamic doctrine of untranslatability may act as a warning against rendering the book kitab, into no more than a codex, mushaf, against secularizing the Quran into a system of science that is entirely and only in and of the world, against turning the Quran into a modern political ideology, like many Islamist movements have tried to do, which of course have led to all sorts of crises. But I think there is something more complicated in this doctrine of untranslatability of the Quran, in that in reality, the Quran has always been translated. It is translated not into other words, but into life. That is, into practices in the context of a particular tradition of ritual and disciplining of the soul. Such a translation requires an openness on the part of the subject to be educated into and by an entire tradition. And I'm thinking, for example, of the hadith narrated by Aicis, who reported saying about the Prophet, and she said, "Kana khuluquhul Quran." Verily, his character was the Quran. In this tradition, it is not merely what one learns to say in disembodied words, but how one learns to live in and through language, in this case, the Quranic language, that expresses the central point of an encompassing vision. That vision, which is shared across different religious traditions, is one of humility in one's own successful learning, and a showing, not a proving to others, of a form of life that prompts them to examine their own life and provides them with reasons for changing it in a truthful direction. For Stoics, this meant principally living according to nature. For Christians, it meant the imitation of Christ. The process of learning how to live by reference to a transcendental vision through practical knowledge is central not only to Islamic, Christian, and Judaic traditions, but also, in very different ways, to Buddhism, Taoism, and Hinduism. Unlike post-Enlightenment philosophy of language and its views of language translation, the traditional Muslim position suggests something more interesting, a concern or worry that abstracted intellectual meanings of the text will displace its relation to the reading, reciting, religious self and community. It assumes that certain messages cannot be separated from the medium because how the medium comes to inhabit that subject and engage her is crucial to what they mean. Do not only look for the meaning of an enunciation, look to its use. Look to who is doing the translating. Look to the community in which it is happening. Translating the Quran into the sensible body is made possible by the language of the Quran as well as with the help of relatives, friends, teachers, communities, pesantrens, a process in which communication is of course an element, but an element that cannot be abstracted from the form of life it engenders and sustains. Let me conclude by saying that one of the most important roles of religion in addressing human crisis on the very foundational level, I think, is therefore as a provocation and a reminder that one, human lives are much too complex to be abstracted, that two, that language is embedded in the particularities of a form of life, and three, that any act of translation should not become a subjugation of what is being translated into the receiving language, as someone like Habermas thought. Instead, translation ought to involve a transformation of the receiving language, an opportunity to learn something important that may enrich and modify that receiving language. While the language of numbers can help us address many problems that we have today and develop techniques and apparatuses that can ameliorate contemporary problems, we should be wary of using such an abstracted language to reconstruct and remake the world, which ultimately is a form of subjugation that have sparked many of our contemporary crises today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Alatas, for your very nice presentation, which is very philosophical, I think, because he addresses the issue starting from the philosophy of language and using Habermas' perspective. I think criticize Habermas. He asks us to rethink the meaning of the Quran and other religious message that should be translated into the context in which the message is revealed. Thank you very much. Well, and then we would like to welcome the I would like to invite the second speakers, according to the list here, is Professor Claudia Caesar. Hello, are you ready now? Yes, your voice still muted. Please unmute. We need help from the, okay, say it. Hello? Anyone can help the technical problems? Hello, say hello, please. Wow, I think we still encounter the technical issue. Hello, say hello, please. It should be okay because oh, can you open your earphone? I think perhaps that's the problem. Hello? Well, I think we will fix the problem and we will, I'm sorry, to continue for the third speaker. Please help the organizing committee to fix the issue of the audio visual. Okay, well, I would like to invite then the third speaker. I'm sorry for this, Professor Hassanain Ahmad. Please, are you going to speak in Arabic or in English? In Arabic, yeah. Tafadol. Please do.
أتقدم بأسمى الآيات والشكر والعرفان للقائمين على هذا المؤتمر العلمي من رؤساء جامعات وعملاء كليات، وأشكر الإخوة الحضور على دعواتكم الكريمة لي ولزميلتي الدكتورة فاطمة محمد منصور. لي معكم اليوم أقدم ملخص عن بحثي، وهو بعنوان مصطلحات الحرب والسلام بين التداخل والتكامل من خلال القرآن الكريم والسنة النبوية الشريفة. وقبل أن أبدأ أعتذر من الإخوة الذين يتكلمون، حيث أننا قد أتينا من مصر ليس لنكلم أنفسنا نحن، بل أتينا لكي نتحاور وتسمعونني وأسمعكم. فأستأذن من حضراتكم للذين يريدون التحدث أن ينتهوا من كلمتهم حتى ننتهي من كلمتنا نحن. موضوع مصطلحات الحرب والسلام قضية مهمة في حياة العالم الإسلامي. الإسلام يتهم بالإرهاب، ويتهم بأنه يعادي الآخرين، لكن الذي يطلع ويقرأ سنة النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ويحلل الآيات القرآنية يرى أن القرآن والسنة النبوية داعيان للسلام لا للحرب، داعيان للأمن وللسلام العالمي.
عندما نرى القرآن يتحدث عن تلك القضية نرى أنه يعدد السلام أكثر من الجهاد. مصطلح وكلمة الجهاد أقل من كلمة السلام، وسوف أذكر لكم كم مرة تكررت وكم مرة تكررت كلمة الإسلام حتى نعلم أن الدين الإسلامي دين يدعو إلى السلام والأمن والأمان. فمن الملاحظ أن كلمة الجهاد فهمت خطأ لدى المستشرقين ولدى المستغربين ولدى عوام المسلمين. كلمة الجهاد فهمت خطأ لدى المستشرقين ولدى المستغربين ولدى عوام المسلمين، حيث أن كلمة الجهاد مشتقاتها تكررت في القرآن الكريم حوالي 35 مرة. كلمة الجهاد، هل هذه الكلمة يقصد بها الحرب؟ تكرار هذا المسمى لو لاحظنا معناه لوجدنا أن 4 كلمات أو 4 مصطلحات من 35 تعني الحرب. وإن شئت فأقول لك بأن المصطلحات الجهاد هذه 35 مصطلح تقسم ل3 أقسام: مصطلحات ما قبل الحرب، مصطلحات ما بعد الحرب، مصطلحات أثناء الحرب. المصطلحات التي في وسط الحرب أو أثناء الحرب 4 مصطلحات ولا تزيد، وبقية مصطلحات الجهاد تستخدم في معاني أخرى غير الحرب. ماذا يعني هذا؟ يعني أن الدين الإسلامي دين سلام. لو أن كل تلك المصطلحات التي ذكرت في القرآن تعني الحرب، إذن القرآن هو دين حرب، لكن ليس كذلك. ليس كذلك، بمعنى أن 4 كلمات في مصطلحات ومشتقات الجهاد تعني الحرب أو أثناء الحرب، وبقية تلك المصطلحات إما قبل أو بعد أو تعني معاني أخرى. هذا يعني أن الدين الإسلامي دين سلام وليس دين حرب. وكلمة الجهاد أحياناً يقصد بها الجهاد في وسائل الإعلام، جهاد في الدراما، الجهاد في دعوة الكلمة. وقد يقصد بالجهاد الجهاد في الحياة اليومية، جهاد الظالمين والمرتشين والمغتصبين والسارقين وغير ذلك. وتعني جهاد المعتدين أيا كان مسلم أو غير مسلم. إذن كلمة الجهاد عندما تذكر في القرآن والسنة لا يقصد بها الحرب، ولكن تعني معاني أخرى غير ذلك. أقول كما قلت لك 35 مصطلحا تعني أو يقصد بها الحرب 4 مصطلحات فقط، مما يدل على أن الدين الإسلامي دين سلام لا حرب، أن أكثر من 15 مصطلح هو ما قبل الحرب، منه السلام. والسلام له معاني متعددة في القرآن الكريم، منها السلام تكرر كم في القرآن؟ 140 مرة. وكلمة الحرب أو الجهاد كررت كم؟ 104 مرة. إذن السلام والدين دين السلام، ليس دين حرب، لأن مصطلحات السلام أكثر. فنرى أن السلام ورد في القرآن الكريم بمعنى أنه اسم من أسماء الله عز وجل. قال تعالى: الملك القدوس السلام، فالسلام اسم من أسمائه. ومن معاني السلام الإسلام. قال تعالى: يهدي به الله من اتبع رضوانه سبل السلام، أي سبل الإسلام. ومن معانيه السلام بمعنى التحية، تحيتهم يوم يلقونه سلام. والسلام بمعنى السلامة من الشر. قال تعالى: قيل يا نوح اهبط بسلام، أي بأمان. والسلام في القرآن بمعنى الثناء الحسن. قال تعالى: سلام على نوح في العالمين. والسلام بمعنى الخير. قال تعالى: وإذا خاطبهم الجاهلون قالوا سلاما. إذن نرى السلام متعدد المعاني. لكن لاحظ أن كلمة السلام عندما ترد في القرآن الكريم ترد بمشتقات السلم والسلم، وهناك فرق بين الاثنين. هناك فرق بين السلم والسلم، وسوف أذكرها لك لاحقا. ثم أكرر لك أمثلة ومصطلحات من مسميات الجهاد ما قبل الحرب، مثل قوله في سبيل الله. آية الصدقات: إنما الصدقات للفقراء والمساكين والعاملين عليها والمؤلفة قلوبهم وفي الرقاب والغارمين وفي سبيل الله. في سبيل الله، في الدفاع عن الوطن، في الدفاع عن الدين، في الدفاع عن العرض، في الدفاع عن الشرف، في الدفاع عن كلمة الحق. يقصد بها معاني متعددة، لا يقصد بها جهاد الحرب فقط. هذه بعض المصطلحات التي ذكرناها من معاني الجهاد قبل الحرب. لدينا مصطلحات أثناء الحرب وهي قليلة جدا، مثل الزحف، الصف، القتال، الحرب. 4 كلمات في وسط 35 مصطلح. ماذا تعني؟ تعني أن 4 مصطلحات فقط في داخل مشتقات مصطلحات الجهاد تعني أن الدين الإسلامي لا يقبل الحرب ولا يحب الحرب. ورسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كان لا يحب أن يقابل الأعداء بقتال، ولا يحب أن يقابلهم بحرب، إنما يقابلهم بحوار، بجدال، بمناظرة، حتى يصل إلى التي هي أحسن. أما الحرب كان النبي يكرهها. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: لا تتمنوا لقاء العدو. لاحظ النص. قال صلى الله عليه وسلم: لا تتمنوا لقاء العدو وسلوا الله العافية. يعني هذا الحديث يعني أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كان لا يحب أن يبدأ الناس بقتال، ولا يحب أن يحارب حتى أي مجتمع آخر. يعني كانت الحرب مجبر عليها. قبل أن أنتقل إلى المصطلحات التي بعد الحرب، يعني أود أن أذكرك بالفرق بين السلم والسلم، لكن يعني أرجو من الإخوة الحاضرين أن ينتبه معي في هذا الفرق. قال تعالى: ولا تهنوا ولا تحزنوا وأنتم الأعلون. هذه آية. وقال تعالى: ولا تهنوا وتدعوا إلى السلم. لاحظ الآية الأولى فيها نهيين، والآية الثانية فيها نهي واحد. لماذا أتت في الآية الأولى نهيين؟ ولماذا أتى في الآية الثانية نهي واحد؟ كان من مقتضى الحال ولا تهنوا ولا تحزنوا وأنتم الأعلون، والثانية ولا تهنوا ولا تدعوا إلى السلم. لكن لم ينهى القرآن عن السلم. لماذا؟ لأن دعوة الإسلام والقرآن السلام، لأن دعوة القرآن السلام، ولأن السلام ليس كله منهي عنه. لاحظ معي، ولأن السلام ليس كله منهي عنه، فهناك سلام عادل يدعو إليه الإسلام، وهناك سلام ذليل مهين يرفضه الإسلام. لذلك قال: ولا تهنوا وتدعوا إلى السلم. لاحظ أيضا هناك مصطلحات ما بعد الحرب مثل الغنيمة، الفيء، واعلموا أنما غنمتم من شيء. وهناك مصطلحات أخرى مثل الفتح والاستعمار ما بعد الحرب. وهناك مصطلحات أخرى مثل الجزية والضريبة ما بعد الحرب. وهناك مصطلحات أخرى ما بعد الحرب مثل الأسرى. لكن أريد أن أثبت لك أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وأن دعوته لم تكن إلا للسلام فقط. بماذا؟ أثبت لك أن الدين الإسلامي دين سلام، ويبحث عن السلام العادل، ويبحث عن الأمن العالمي، ولا يحب محاربة الآخرين. تلك الإحصائية التي أذكرها لك الآن من خلال، لو سألتك سؤالا: ما عدد القتلى في معارك النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم؟ كم عدد القتلى في معارك النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم؟ 25 معركة تقريبا. 25 معركة تقريبا. كم عدد القتلى فيها؟ وعدد القتلى ما بين الأعداء وأصحاب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كم؟ 1000 قتيل. 25 معركة في حياة النبي يقتل 1000 فقط من الأعداء ومن أصحاب النبي. 1000 فقط. عندما تسمع هذا الرقم تتصور: هل الإسلام دين حرب؟ هل الإسلام دين حرب أم دين سلام؟ الإسلام دين حرب، الدين سلام. 25 معركة فيها 1000 قتيل. تعال أحلل لك 1000 حتى تتيقن ويطمئن قلبك وتوقن وتذعن وتعترف وتقر وتعلم أن الدين الإسلامي دين سلام. 1000 قتيل منهم 600 من مقاتلي يهود بني قريظة. منهم كم؟ 600 من يهود من؟ يهود بني قريظة. قتلوا قضاء لا قتالا، يعني بحكم محكمة. قتلوا قضاء لا قتالا يعني بحكم محكمة، بمعنى لم يقتلوا في أثناء الحرب. و386 قتل الحرب المباشر، يعني أثناء الحرب في 25 معركة قتل كم واحد؟ 386 واحد فقط. 386 فرد أثناء 25 معركة، منهم 203 قتل المشركين، منهم 203 قتل المشركين. وما تبقى من 386 شهداء من أصحاب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم، يعني 183 شهيدا مسلما في 25 معركة، و203 قتلى مشركين، و600 من 1000 قتلوا بحكم محكمة ليست أثناء الحرب. تعال بالمقابل حتى تعلم أن الدين الإسلامي دين سلام. كم قتل في الحرب العالمية الأولى؟ وكم قتل في الحرب العالمية الثانية؟ وكم قتل في حرب الجزائر؟ وكم قتل في معركة العراق؟ قتل الجزائر حوالي 1,000,000 قتيل، وقتل الحربين العالمية الأولى والثانية 16 مليون، والثانية 50 مليون. يعني الأولى والثانية 66 مليون قتيل في حربين. نعم في حربين فقط. ورسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم حارب كم؟ 25 معركة، لم يقتل منهم إلا 183 شهيد، لم يستشهد من أصحاب رسول الله إلا 183 شهيد، و230 قتلى من المشركين. هذا يعني ماذا؟ أن الدين الإسلامي دين سلام. حتى أنتهي من الكلمة في لحظة. غزوات النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم استمرت كم سنة؟ 8 سنوات، من 2 لسنة 9 هجرية. أكبر عدد الغزوات حدثت في السنة أو في السنة الثانية، حدث فيها 8 غزوات. استمرت الغزوات والسرايا حوالي 38 سرية، ولم يقتل إلا القليل من أصحاب رسول الله، و203 من قتل المشركين. هذا يعني أن الدين الإسلامي دين سلام ودين أمن، داعي للسلام ويدعو إلى دار السلام، وتحيتنا سلام، واسم الله سلام، واسم النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم سلام، والداعي إلى السلام. وآخر كلامنا السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Waalaikumsalam. Shukran kasir. Yeah, my Arabic is not good, but I can get some important point from his presentation. I think that he focused on the principal message of Islam, that is salam or peace, and he highlight the several verses and the prophetic tradition in dealing with the salam, and then look at how this concept was implemented by the Prophet Muhammad and his companion in the early time. So his analytical is more focused on the historical and early Islam, and to show that the salam, peace, is really the central message in Islam. Thank you very much. Now I would like to go back to, I hope the technical problem has already been fixed. Let's see. Professor Saise, hello?
Assalamualaikum.
Yeah, good. Yes, we can hear your voice now. Please, 10 minutes for your presentation. Time is yours.
Thank you very much. The title of my talk today is Being Inspired by Islam in Indonesia. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers, the Ministry of Religious Affairs and the State Islamic University, Wali Songon Semarang, for this invitation and the opportunity to share some of my thoughts and research findings at this important conference today. So I will talk about being inspired by Islam in Indonesia, researching Silaturahmi, Barokah, and the Wali Songo. And following, I will introduce some main thoughts and research findings of the last few years that will illustrate how I approach the study of Islam in Indonesia. First of all, Silaturahmi. So I focused especially on local and localized Muslim concepts like Silaturahmi and Barokah, and how a deep analysis of these concepts can help us to better understand social religious dynamics, movements, and change in contemporary Indonesia. Especially the localized concept of Silaturahmi, which you are all very familiar with, has a huge potential of the West. To my knowledge, can you still hear me?
Hello? Yes, your voice is like it's being interrupted. Please go on. Hello? Yes.
Okay, so I talked about Silaturahmi being has potential for diplomatic relations. And to my knowledge, nowhere in the greater Muslim world is the understanding and practice of Silaturahmi so deeply rooted as in Indonesia. And although you might be not aware because you live in this reality your whole life, it is truly something special that we Muslims in the West need to study and inculcate in our everyday life in order to establish and build our community. I hope you can hear me well.
Yes, we can hear.
Okay, good. So combining two different methodological approaches, those of new area studies and those of the integration of knowledge, I have argued for including the localized Islamic concept of Silaturahmi as an essential concept in the framing of diplomacy as part of the Idealist School of International Relations. Using the methodological framework of the integration of knowledge as developed by Kamal Hassan at the International Islamic University, I have further argued that Silaturahmi as part of Islamic legacy can enrich Islamic diplomacy and be used to beautify and enrich the secular field of diplomacy. Looking beyond diplomacy, the localized Islamic concept of Silaturahmi as a social practice and reality of the people of Indonesia provides a concept that can enrich our modern human sciences in a positive, thought-provoking, and substantial way. Furthermore, since the common global perception of Indonesia is one of being located in the Islamic periphery, exporting a localized Islamic concept has the potential to position the country as a player that contributes to global Islamic discourses. You can still follow me?
Yes, just go on.
Hello?
Yes, we can still
Okay.
hear you. Yeah.
Okay, so continuing with the example of Silaturahmi and Barokah, I wrote in another article that I see in them inherent transformational powers. So in my article, I show that the social religious importance of practicing Silaturahmi in Muslim Indonesia can expose a person to different interpretations of Islam, including those in which they have not been socialized. The transformational power attached to Silaturahmi allows us to obtain a deeper understanding of dynamics in Muslim Indonesia. In fact, the concept of Silaturahmi plays a vital role in the changing dynamics in Muslim Indonesia. Keeping this eminent role in mind, I propose to include Silaturahmi in the analytical framework of future research about Islam in Indonesia. Because looking through the lens of Silaturahmi can help us to understand why certain phenomena exist and how the Islamic landscape in Indonesia is constantly changing. Analyzing Silaturahmi practices in Muslim communities, groups, or individuals can help us to understand shifts or changes in Islamic interpretation and practices as well as Islamic movements. Similar is the case with Barokah, divine blessing power. Barokah as well has a transformational power attached to it. Through seeking Barokah, one can become more easily exposed to different Islamic interpretations and practices. In addition, Barokah and its transformational power contributes to political and social religious change. So this was what I had to say about Silaturahmi and Barokah, and I would like to come to the Wali Songo, which is my most recent research project, which I have just finished, and inshallah, a book will come out about the Wali Songo. And there also I combine new area studies with Islamic theology, which has not been attempted before. And I have the opinion that both perspectives combined have promising potential, because both assume an emic perspective, an insider perspective, to analyze and describe the research findings. So this is a 9-chapter book, and I can only give you a very short introduction to some of the topics I discussed there. And 2 of the topics I will just mention shortly is, because we talk about Silaturahmi, is Silatur-Ruh. So what is Silatur-Ruh? So I came to understand this when I had to do research during the COVID pandemic, COVID-19, and all borders were closed and I could not travel to do qualitative research. So basically I developed Silatur-Ruh as a methodological tool during my research project. Silatur-Ruh is a method to connect to one's research field and people on a spiritual level. In my case, for example, including sending Al-Fatiha as a spiritual gift to the Wali Songo in order to connect my being to them, announce my intended visit, and prepare myself for it. On a macro level, Silatur-Ruh can be read and practiced as connecting not only one's intellect with the research field, but also one's soul or heart in order to express oneself more deeply in the field. This is Silatur-Ruh, and the second is creativity. So another tool I suggest is to add to the methodological framework of qualitative research in new area studies is engaging in some creativity activity while in the research field. So in my case, this was writing poetry. And I argue that it has the potential to obtain a more profound understanding of the research field. My inspiration for this approach can be found in the writings of different Muslim scholars who argued that composing pieces of poetry or entering the world of archetypes can be used to convey religious and moral teachings. I reasoned that connecting to my research field through poetry or any other creative activity that activates the spiritual heart has the potential to uncover information about the research field that are otherwise obscured. And I would like to just mention shortly one example of the teachings of the Wali Songo that we can also use in Germany or in other Western countries, and which we can call recycling the container, but changing the content. Excuse me. So there are several strategies that the Wali Songo use, and I think you're more aware and have more knowledge of them than me. But one of the da'wah strategies used by the Wali Songo is described as recycling the container, but changing the content. And this we can also use in the West. This strategy can also be compared to the allegory given by Dr. Omar Farouk Abdullah, where he describes the religion of Islam as a stream of crystal clear water that runs over different riverbeds. The different riverbeds symbolize different cultures and traditions. The water reflects the color of the riverbed because it does not have a color of its own. Therefore, the way the religion of Islam is ultimately practiced depends on the place where it will root itself. While the water will always remain water and the religion of Islam will always remain the religion of Islam, it will nevertheless reflect the diversity of the cultures and traditions where it is at home. So that is why I have the idea of one example from Germany where the tree has a very special significance. And the tree is given like a special purpose. For example, the Christmas tree, and you decorate it beautifully. So as a German Muslim, I ask myself, following the Wali Songo and learning about their Dawa approach for the last 3 years, I ask myself, is there a possibility to adapt this part of German culture, so the Christmas tree, to our Muslim practices? If we would apply the strategy of recycling the container and changing the content following the Wali Songo and Japa, we can turn the Christmas tree into a Ramadan tree. The Ramadan tree can be just as splendidly decorated, albeit with more appropriate symbols, and illuminate our Muslim homes. Therefore, we should not reject the idea of decorating trees altogether, because it is such an important element of celebration culture in Germany. Rather, we should include the concept of the decorated tree in our own German Muslim culture. Like the Wali Songo, who were not hostile towards the drum, the beduk, used by the dukun to call the jinn, but changed its purpose to calling people to prayer to the mosque. German Muslims can use the decorated tree to be included in German Muslim material culture. A similar example that we already find is a Ramadan calendar, fashioned after the traditional Christmas calendar in different Western countries. So concluding, the legacy, teachings and spirit of the Wali Songo and Islam in Indonesia in general is most worthy to be studied and studied beyond the region of Nusantara. It is part of Muslim world history and beautifully illustrates the interconnectedness of the Muslim world in the past and the present. We need more voices to make known the Muslim legacy of the so-called Muslim peripheries. It is especially from these places that we can take inspiration for the Muslim and non-Muslim communities in the political and cultural West, whichever geographical direction this West is located. So please allow me to end my presentation with a poem about Indonesia, because in the beginning also some people recited a pantun. So please allow me to recite a poem that I wrote for Indonesia. The Mother of the South. In the Mother of the South, you planted secrets, hidden deep in her womb, concealed in her long black hair, close under her skin, valuable, noble, courageous. In the Mother of the South, you planted secrets. Invaders tried to air them, to seize, destroy, to use them up. But you protected her, the mother, and your secrets, valuable, noble, courageous. In the Mother of the South, you planted secrets. You sent your friends to cover them, the mother and your secrets. Your friends invited people to your path. Do so until today, valuable, noble, courageous. You put secrets in their hearts, where they were preserved, passed on only to true hearts, from heart to heart, when time was right. Your secrets, planted in the mother of the South, valuable, noble, courageous. Thank you very much for your attention, and wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Dr. Saizer. As the additional information to you that Dr. Saizer wrote a dissertation about Islam in Indonesia entitled Religious Scape in Muslim Indonesia, Personalities, Institutions, and Practices. Therefore, we hear from her presentations using a lot of example of religious practice that can encourage peace, like silaturahmi, and also the concept of barakah, and also how she compared the methods of the Wali Songo, 9 signs when spreading Islam, and how the similar method can be adopted by Muslim and in Germany. Well, this is very nice presentation. Thank you, Dr. Saizer. Okay, we would like to invite Professor Dr. Haji Abdul Jamil to present his presentation. Time is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I am an unlucky speaker tonight, speaking in front of the audience at 10:30 late night. Therefore, I would like to appreciate all of the audience for stay and keep sitting on your chairs. Thank you very much. I have to stress this because I got a funny story from my college, the late rector of Diponegoro University, Professor Eko Budiharjo. He told me that one time there was a seminar, invited some speaker, and because one of the speakers could not attract the attention of the audience, so the audience come out of the seminar one by one. And the moderator could not prohibit them to come out of the venue until the last man sitting in front of him. And the speaker asked him eagerly, "Sir, do you still want to listen my presentation?" To his surprise, the answer is, "I'm not leaving the venue, and I'm staying here because I am the next speaker." So I would like to ask you, all of you, do you still want to listen my presentation? Or you want to leave the venue one by one? Okay, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, of course I am glad to join this remarkable seminar, and also I am glad to be able to meet our colleagues from New York University, and also ikhwani min Masr, ahlan wa sahlan bi khudurikum, nahnu su'ada bi maqalatikum hawla at-tafsir hawla al-jihad. Shukran jazilan. Ladies and gentlemen, in line with the major themes of this conference, that is redefining the roles of religion in addressing human crisis, encountering peace, justice, and human rights issues, I am glad to deliver my presentation entitled Challenge of Peace and Harmony, a lesson from socio-religious tension in Indonesia. Part of this presentation was taken from involvement in some interfaith dialogue some years ago. I joined. And speaking about religion, look like never ending when viewed from various aspects of daily life. Experts perceive religion from their own perspective, thereby reinforcing the function and roles of religion in social and community life. An individual's religiosity is always synonymous with their righteousness in intense relation with God and their action towards human beings. Here, religion plays a positive role in social life as a savior out of various cases in life. My focus here is to discuss religious social tension that have occurred in Indonesia many times. Even though history has provided valuable lessons regarding various tension since the early time, this does not mean that the problem is over, especially in our country, in Indonesia. Conflicts that disrupt harmony among citizens cyclically occurs in various forms. Ladies and gentlemen, actually, not only state actors, but also non-state actors have done efforts. But there is no guarantee that the Indonesian people will become aware, living in the spirit of diversity. The security approach might be successful in stopping conflict, as usual, but do not guarantee that it will stop permanently. The dialogue, which considered more providing space for the parties, sometimes has not produced satisfactory result, because conversation on peace and harmony usually occurred among leaders, but conflict and tension found at the grassroots level. Sociologically, religion, whose essence is faith in God, is expressed by its adherence in thought and behavior in daily life. Sometimes the implication of this bring an exclusive attitude to both individual and groups. In other words, there is a religious culture that mutually negates other people, not forming an inclusive culture. Let me tell historical event regarding notable socio-religious conflict that attract big attention on national scale, even internationally. First, the conflict during New Order, called Situ Bondo riots, occurred in October 10, 1996. The riot began after unsatisfactory verdict against a young man named Soleh, charged with blasphemy towards the outstanding religious leader in that area. The courthouse was set on fire, and churches and primary schools were damaged, along with the public facilities. Included 5 casualties, the family of Prais Ishak in the time. Ladies and gentlemen, the police started to handle the case at 4:30 p.m. and control situation at night. The situation showed how difficult it is to resolve the conflict, especially caused by religion. Finally, 120 people were arrested, including 11 high school students. The cause of riot was misunderstanding of blasphemy case. Prior to this, there was a case of blasphemy committed by a young man named Soleh, as I mentioned above, against a charismatic figure, which sparked the anger of the masses. After sanction, a rumor spread that young man protected by church. Here must be stressed that affiliation with a certain religion could bring to hostility and mutual exclusiveness. From there led to the riot targeting the destruction of churches and another public facility and resulting in casualty. The important point of this case is that social relations among religious followers are sometimes influenced by prejudice or mutual exclusiveness. The riot above is triggered by misleading information spread among the protesters. Looking at this problem historically as a man to know the essence of religious experience and its expression in thought and fellowship. This is intended to create awareness, fostering peace, especially in a country like Indonesia. Now I would like to explain about the efforts of our Ministry of Religious Affairs, of MORA. Indonesia is a unique country in many aspects. Geographically, it is considered the largest archipelago state in the world with 17,000 islands. 17,000 islands. Sometimes more than 17,000 islands. The diversity of social and religious background in Indonesia with 1,340 ethnic groups, 718 regional language and 6 religion is considered a cultural wealth and could be spirit to build strong nation. On the other hand, it is also a threat of producing horizontal conflict as happened many times. Here, religion became primordial bonds, triggering factors for conflict among citizens. Neighboring countries provide concrete examples where religion has hindered national unity, as seen in the Philippines and Thailand. The Philippine government, particularly in Mindanao region, has been involved in armed conflict for 54 years. Similarly, the Thai government has faced similar challenges in Patani region in the southern part of the country. Based on the fact of religious conflict and negative interfaith relation, the Ministry of Religious Affairs, MORA, took the initiative through various activities. First, in response to increasing tension and suspicion surrounding the issue of Christianization, in 1967, the Ministry of Religious Affairs organized an interfaith consultation in Jakarta. As a basis for consultation, the government developed concepts to resolve issues arising in religious communities and striving for mutual understanding and respect among all religious communities. This was continued with program for fostering religious harmony led by Minister Mukti Ali from 1971 to 1978. He promoted the spirit of dialogue with the well-known formulation, agree in disagreement. It intended as a keywords to acknowledging differences while fostering a spirit of togetherness and mutual assistance among fellow citizens. With the same spirit, in 1978, next minister introduced 3 pillars of religious harmony among religious community, internal religious communities, and religious community and the government. Tension not only occur among religious community, but also within internal religious community themselves. This arises due to escalating differences in understanding between mainstream group and new emerging ideologies. An example of this is the conflict between Sunni Muslim and Ahmadiyya and Shia group on the other. The Ahmadiyya conflict paid attention both domestically and internationally, especially during incident of Cikese. Cikese is a small area located about 60 kilometers of the hinterland of Pandeglang, Banten province. Next is Sampang case. Sampang is a small town in Madura Island, now well known as the case of Charok. In recent years, the Minister of Religious Affairs initiated the program for religious moderation. The initiative came up primarily from the need of enhancing peace and harmony among religious believers, and it might be the response to tragic event destroying interfaith relation. It was church bombing occurred in Surabaya simultaneously on May 13, 2018. The first bomb attack took place at the Santa Maria Tak Bercela Church on Jalan Ngagel Madya, Gubeng district at 6:30 early in the morning. The second at Indonesian Christian Church on Jalan Raya Diponegoro at 7:15, 1 hour after the first bombing. And the third at the Pentecostal Church on Jalan Arjuna at 7:53. 8 people were reported dead and 38 others were injured. Moderation derived from English word moderate means keeping within reasonable or proper limits, not extreme or excessive. In other words, it meant maintaining attitudes and behavior within reasonable and sensible boundaries. In everyday communication, people of different religion will encounter others with different beliefs. Most religious communities make claim of truth about their own religion. A moderate stance allows room to believe in truth of one's own religion while respecting others. Tension between religious community continue to occur in area where Muslims are the minority, such as the Tolikara case in 2015. Riots broke out in Karubaga, Tolikara Regency, Papua, during the celebration of Idul Fitri on July 17, 2015. The incident began when a group of people arrived at Baitul Mustaqim prayer hall in Tolikara, Papua, while Muslims were performing the Idul Fitri prayer on Friday morning, July 17. They protested because loudspeaker used by Muslim congregation disturbed the event being held by GIDI, Gereja Injili Indonesia. As a result of the riot, one child was shot dead on the spot, one prayer hall, several houses and shops were burned by the mob. The three church bombing in Surabaya and burning of Muslim places of worship have undermined the long-standing efforts to improve inter-religious relations in Indonesia. It seems that the intensive dialogues have lost their meaning, or perhaps harmony only exists at the level of religious leaders, while at the grassroots level suspicion still prevails. To address tension and friction arising from the issue of Christianization, the government also issued regulation in the form of joint decree by Minister of Religion and Minister of Internal Affairs regarding the establishment of places of worship. This regulation was issued to determine that before place of worship can be built, approval must be obtained from the resident living near the construction site. Some Christians claim that this regulation is used to discriminate against them and prevent them from building churches. Meanwhile, Muslims argue that Christians in some cases intentionally establish churches in areas with a small Christian population. Mutual suspicion still colors the interfaith relation at that time. Ladies and gentlemen, tension surrounding the establishment of places of worship also occurred among Christian followers when they attempt to build the Yasmin Church in Bogor in 2006. The Bogor city government issued a building permit, usually called EMB, for the construction of place of worship in the name of Indonesian Christian Church. The city administration allowed Gereja Yasmin to be built at Jalan Abdullah bin Nuh, number 31. However, 5 years later, on March 11, 2011, the Bogor city government revoked the permit through decree of Mayor of Bogor. The revocation of the permit was justified by the rejection from the surrounding residents. Some residents accused the falsification of one of requirements for establishing Gereja Yasmin. After 15 years ongoing dynamics, the church was finally able to be established and was officially inaugurated on April 2023. Ladies and gentlemen, now I would like to explain regarding internal conflict with Islamic communities in Indonesia. Internal conflict within Islamic community in Indonesia with religious nuances also occur within specific religious community. The following two cases reflect internal conflict within Muslim community due to differences in interpreting religious teaching. First is Ahmadiyah case. It's quite long, so I have to move to Shiah case. And second is Shiah case. Ahmadiyah case happened in Cikesik. It is located in the regency of Pandeglang, and Shiah case is located in the regency of Sampang, Madura. 1 people reported dead in Aicis, and 6 people reported dead in the conflict of Chikese. And finally, I know, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Lesson for the future. The digital era marked by easy access to information has its own consequences for religious life in diverse country like Indonesia. Incident that occurs in one region quickly spread to other areas with various narratives, often accompanied by deliberate action from irresponsible parties to disrupt interreligious relations. Sociologically, religion, which is essentially human belief in the absolute reality, referred to as God, tends to manifest itself in tangible form through thought and action. A Muslim or Christian, for example, will inevitably have perspective and thought that are influenced by their respective religion. In Islam, there is concept of ummah, which bind individuals together in the spirit of unity with strong bond of solidarity. Prophet Muhammad said, "Al-Muslimu lil-Muslimi kal-bunyani yashuddu ba'dum ba'dah." And there is also saying among Christian, the Christian expression, "Unus Christianus, nullus Christianus." One Christian is not a Christian. This is highlight the importance of community or ecclesia. And the religion also emphasizes the solidarity among the followers. Ladies and gentlemen, although there's many currently be no conflict maybe, all parties must remain vigilant and learn from the history of past incidents, where cases like this occurred cyclically in different formats. The story of Ahmadiyah and Shia in Indonesia seems never ending, even though the nation has entered the form era with an open democratic spirit and respect for human rights. In addition to promoting the idea of religious moderation through education to emphasize the importance of maintaining unity in diversity, institutional efforts are being made by MORA. It is called Forum Komunikasi Umat Beragama, the Forum for Communication among Religious Leaders. And specifically in our campus, to promote more mutual understanding among religious followers, we now establish what we call Wali Songo Mediation Center, and is involved in training on conflict resolution participated by representative of religion in national scale. It is hoped this training could disseminate technical way of how to resolve conflict among religious followers. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Professor Abdul Jamil, for your presentation. Honorable speakers and audience, now time is like 11 p.m. and we like late 1 hour from the actual schedule. So that's why I'm not going to prolong this session, and unfortunately I regret that we not open question and answer. But we hope that this first session will, illuminate the great theme of the redefining religion in addressing human crisis. As we have listened from the presentation by Professor Alatas and also Professor Ahmad, who both focus on the conceptual, on the substantial concept in Islam, like in the revelation, prophet tradition, and the concept of jihad, to reinterpret them so that the meaning will be relevant and contextual and not be used to provoke conflict or tension. And from the presentation given by Dr. Saizer and Professor Abdul Jamil, we know that the effort to redefine the role of religion in addressing human crisis is not only from the theoretical perspective, but also I think from the empirical practices. We know that in everyday life, people actually live peacefully, and they can maintain harmony in plural society and country like Indonesia. that must be one of the crucial element in defining the role of religion in addressing human crisis. Thank you very much for your attention, and let applause to all speakers tonight. And see you tomorrow morning on the parallel session and also on the other discussion. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Record.